beautiful people, and welcome to the Insights of Candidates of Color Roundtable discussion. It is a distinct honor and privilege to moderate this discussion with such courageous and tenacious leaders of color that made the decision to run for office across Rensselaer County. Despite voter suppression, ballots harvesting scheme to hijack the working families party line, ballot fraud, some limited resources, and zero opportunity to debate their opponents, our candidates of color stayed on course to the finish line. History was made in the number of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, stepping up to run for Troy City Council, Rensselaer County Legislature, and Rensselaer County Executive. Although this history did not result in all of the candidates of color securing seats they ran for, it encourages more BIPOC people to run for office. When I reflect on the outcome of the election, I think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. words. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Let me briefly introduce our candidates of color. We have Gwen Wright, who ran for Rensselaer County Executive, Shawntell Mills-Sanchez, who ran for County Legislator, District 4. We have Kiani Conley Wilson, who won for the Troy City Council, District 5. We have Stephen Figueroa that ran for Troy City Council, District 6. Marketa Edwards that ran for Troy City Council, District 6. And Colin, who ran for Troy City Council, District 1. Please visit the Sanctuary for Independent Media website to learn more about the candidates. As a reminder, please put your questions in the chats. So let's get started. So the first question is for each panelist, which will explore the following questions in their responses, such as what made them decide to run for office? Would they do it again? What was one thing that they learned about themselves or their community since launching their campaigns? What was the most rewarding part and what was the most challenging part of the campaign? Were their campaigns people powered or party powered? And if we could turn back the time like Cher, what would you do differently? And what's next for our esteemed panelists? So I'll start with Gwen Wright.
Thank you so much for that, Daquetta. It seems like it was a really long time ago that the election happened. I'm sure it doesn't seem as long ago for you, Kiani, since you're right getting started. But and at the same time, I feel that it took up so much of our lives. So I think in reflecting back, there are a few things that come to mind for me. Why did I run? I ran because I was approached, I was asked, I thought about it long and hard and realized that being county executive was a job that I could do, that my background and experience really lent itself to that position. So I thought, I would take on that challenge, and a challenge it was. And I knew that going in. I knew that I was facing a really formidable foe, but at the end of the day, what was important to me was to be a voice of change and to really challenge the status quo. Win or lose, what I felt I needed to do was to really have people take a look at how county government is run in Rensselaer and to be a voice for looking at something different or seeing a different vision. And I feel that I was able to do that. My campaign was absolutely people powered. I was able to connect with people throughout this county who similarly felt it was time for change and who really were looking for a candidate that wouldn't back down to the establishment. I feel that that's always been part of my life, and this was no different. And so I think that what was really helpful for me was the support and encouragement that I got from communities throughout the county, large and small, Black and white, people with resources who supported me by writing checks and contributing financially, as well as people who are of lower means who stepped up to volunteer and put boots on the ground to help us get as far as we did.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gwen. D. Colin?
Hello, and thank you, Daquetta. So I hear some noise. I'm not sure if that's me.
I'll say, just if everyone can please ensure that you are muted, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm pleased to be on this panel. Just looking at everyone's faces together like this, I think is really powerful. Because no matter what the results were, we made history in the city of Troy and across Rensselaer County just by us running. As far as like why I decided to run, I was also encouraged, like Gwen. Actually, another candidate, Stephen Figueroa, and our gracious host, Jerry Ford, had a long conversation with me about the idea of running. And also people in the past have, thrown it my way, suggested, would you should run for mayor, or would you run for an office or something like that. And the time felt like it was right to finally put my name in the running to represent my district. And so I did it. I'm glad that I did it. I think just the biggest reward for me was talking to people and meeting people and seeing the excitement and just sheer inspiration they had that I was running in their district. That meant a lot to me. And I think that representation goes a long way in not only motivating us towards the polls, but also reminding us that change is possible. I'm someone who I intrinsically operate on hope. I feel like if we don't have hope, we really don't have much at all. And so, you may have heard me saying change is possible all the time, and I had hashtag change is possible because I really believe that. I still believe that. And I'm encouraged by that quote that you used, Daquetta, that, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. As far as would I run again, that's a loaded question for me personally. Towards the end of the campaign, I lost my aunt, and a week after election, I lost my uncle. And currently I have an uncle in the hospital who we are deeply praying for. And so all of that loss has caused me to really think about what it means to be far away from my family, and also show up for my community at the same time. So I don't know that I can answer that question right now in this moment. But I am so grateful for everyone who worked on my campaign. It truly was a grassroots, boots on the ground kind of thing happening. And we were all learning together and pushing forward together. And even the collaboration between campaigns was all, grassroots centered, how to make this happen. And making it work. One of my biggest lessons was that, as much as I'm grateful for every endorsement I had, I realized that not all endorsements are synonymous with tangible support. And I think if I was to do it again, I would really want to make sure that the help that I need is there, and the support to really galvanize people towards the polls is really happening. And I don't know if I don't think I'm speaking for myself, but that was my experience. And, for what's next, everyone knows that I'm a poet, I'm an artist. My voice will always be here in the city of Troy. You just have to give me a mic, a megaphone. Even if I don't have that, you'll probably see me on a street corner spitting a poem. And my poems, as you saw earlier, are really centered on storytelling and people and giving voice to social issues that we need to continue to work on, and just making our community and space better for the next generations.
Thank you so much, Dee, and just know that our sincere condolences, and we are thinking of you and praying for you.
Thank you.
The next person is Shawntell Mills-Sanchez.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. What made me decide to run for office? It was a combination of things. The party needed a third candidate, and time was really running out. I had the time, and I felt I had the resources, and I felt like I could throw myself in there. But more importantly, I was very concerned about the various environmental issues in my community, including mining expansion without any plans for reclamation. I literally live like adjacent to a standing gravel mine. I don't think people on this call, except people that live in this community, really realize how big mining is in Rensselaer County. We also found PFOA in our middle school drinking water. And of course, one of the worst environmental disasters to happen in this state happened right here in this district, only 7 miles from my home, the Dewey Loeffel landfill site. So I was absolutely disturbed that I had never heard anything from my local representatives on these issues. And I felt that, many of the constituents were unaware as well. So I wanted to really be a voice for the community in that area. Would I run again? I think I would. I've learned a lot. I think I could do it again. I would. What kind of support did I receive? I received support from generous people who gave me money. The party was also helpful with marketing materials. I was also very lucky. I had someone from party leadership help me manage my campaign. The only problem is that there's so many people that needed help that it was a stressor even on them. So I had to really start being more active myself, and really fight, doing a lot of things on my own. What did I learn about myself? Wow, I did not think I would be willing to put myself in the public eye. I was very nervous about that. I wasn't sure I could do it. But you know what? You have to. You just have to. And if you make a mistake, which I did, yes, you do feel vulnerable, but you get up and you keep moving. So I'm happy that I did that. That was really a wonderful experience. What's next for me? I see myself right now being more in an operational role, doing something in the background. I would love to see the campaign process be more standardized. So I'm trying to find my way there. As far as if I could turn back time, what would I do differently? I'm going to be honest with you. My husband was the backbone of my campaign. He was my treasurer, my webmaster, my driver, my graphic designer, and a shoulder to cry on. You can't do that to someone. You can't. It was too much for him. So I will never do that again. As far as my campaign being people powered or party powered, it wasn't either. It was, like I said, I had kind, generous people donate to me. And of course I had some support from the party. And of course I was also a very driven candidate. So yes, all of that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawntell. Next, we have Stephen Figueroa.
All right. First and foremost, I would like to thank you guys for this opportunity to be able to share this platform with you guys. It's really an honor to share this special day, the celebration of Martin Luther King. So what made me run? I've been doing a lot of community work, probably a good 10 years in the city of Troy, with the platform of Team Hero, and just seeing the lack of resources, the lack of diversity, the lack of just the people being connected, was very disturbing to me, especially in North Central. We do suffer with a plague of violence. And I felt there wasn't enough solution, there wasn't enough resources that was plaguing this violence in our communities, not only in North Central, but throughout the city of Troy. And I feel like with my connections to the youth, with my connections to the people drove me to and pushed me and was like, hey, I think you should run. I think you're a good candidate. You're always out in the community. So that really inspired me. That really pushed me to take it to the next level. So I just wanted to take this community driven work to the next level and being able to make a difference in my community. So that's what really pushed me to run. What kind of support? I could truly say I receive a lot of supports from the unions, from the candidates, some of the candidates. I definitely want to thank Gwen Wright. Towards the end, we worked together, and I appreciate that. And just the people that I was surrounded by, elected officials, John McDonald, a lot of supporters. That's one of the things that really kept me going and kept me hopeful. But it was really the people of Troy. What did I learn about myself? I've never been into politics, ever, ever, ever. I didn't know what it was. But I learned that if you educate yourself enough, you will learn the ropes, and your strategies become more stronger. So, learning the background into politics and what goes on behind the scenes. However, you may see an elected official and you may see multiple elected officials, but what's really going on in the background, I learned a lot about that as well. And I learned a lot about myself. What's next for me? Or will I run again? Absolutely. It was a very close race. It was a very close race. It was about 100 votes. So I think I got what it takes to, like I said, I learned a lot from this experience. I know where the lack was, and it was a very, very close race. So I do plan on running again. What's next for me? Basically to continue to do the work that I do in the community. During this process, I learned a lot that I don't need a title to do the things to make an impact in my community. Yes, it is helpful to have some power, right? To push these policies, to push these resources into the community. But I truly think that the title or the little bit of power that you can have as an elected official doesn't make any difference with a person that's already doing the powerful work in the community and trying to make a difference. So I'm going to continue to work for our youth. I'm going to continue to build social capital and continue to fight against the violence in our community, not only in North Central, but throughout the community of Troy, and bringing these resources into our communities each and every day and trying to come up with solutions. If I can, what was the last one? If I can change.
You can turn back time, like Cher. What would you do differently?
What would I do different? I would want to educate. I would want to educate more of the people. I realize in this campaign that there's a lack of education when it comes to voting. When it comes to who, half of the people didn't know like who were their elected officials. Half of the people didn't know how to fill out a voter registration form. So if I could change something, I would definitely, in the midst of the very, very beginning, or even like starting now, doing educational workshops, especially in the Black and Brown community and the minorities. They're not educated enough. And that plays a major part in the election, because you know, when different parties are convincing, especially people that's not educated. For example, we know, you know, I don't know Daquetta, but I have somebody that, you know, might push for Daquetta. And since I'm not educated, hey, I could come and say whatever I want about Daquetta, and you just convinced me in a matter of 30 seconds to vote for Daquetta. In reality, I'm not really educated, but somebody just told me a couple of things. So, you know, really digging into the roots of education and how important it is, not only of the presidential, the national election, but the local election, and how can it affect our people on a daily basis, how those resources are being affected. So that education piece to our community, especially the community that's not educated when it comes to the political world and voting and voter suppression and all these other stuff that we struggle in our communities. That I would definitely do that difference and make sure that our people is getting the education they need. So when they go to that poll, they're making the right decision.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Next, we have Marketa Edwards.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Wow, let's see. What made me decide to run? For me, I guess kind of like everybody else, it was the people. You know, I am a community organizer first. I'm a harm reductionist, and those in my community know that for me, we need people that represent us, that look like us, that have been through the traumas that we've been through doing this work. And just like everybody that's sitting on this panel right now, we are based upon trying to bring liberation to our communities. And in order to do that, it starts with building power, building leadership, and developing leaders overall. So that's where I think, for me, it came to a realization that it was obvious that I needed to run. As far as the approach, and would I do it again? Definitely, why not? Because, you know, as I said, it wasn't about me. It was about, you know, the people and building a community that looks like us, that's developed for us, that works for us. There's so many systems and safety that are put up against us that are supposed to help us, but they haven't. And in order to have those changes take place, we have to have people in power that understand that know what those traumas look like before they happen. That can stop, you know, that safety net failure before it even is designed to get off the ground. Let's see, what kind of support did I receive during the campaign? My support came from the people. As I've been saying, as we all been saying, you know, our campaigns have been driven by the people of this community, driven by the people of Troy. And we have to thank you. If we don't thank anybody, I thank the people of Troy, because you came out, you showed up when nobody else showed up. You showed us that we can have some real change here, change that represents us, change that we've been working for, that we've been desperately needing and, you know, starving for it in the city. And the people who live here showed us that they're tired, they're ready for this change, and they're willing to do what's necessary to get it done. So thank you. Let's see, what's the one thing I learned about myself in the community? I learned that I'm a lot stronger than I think I am, definitely. And that I'm willing to go above and beyond, even when I am tired and the days I want to just break down and cry and go right back under the covers. But, you know, as I keep saying, and I hate to be, you know, beating that dead horse, but I'm not doing this for me. I do this for the people. And, you know, it shows in our work because, you know, as I said, when the days when you can't get up, you think about those who don't have that option of getting up, you know, but we have that option. So you get up and you continue this fight one more day. And what I learned about my community is that just as well, that we are just as strong, especially together. When we work in silos, we get nothing accomplished, but when we work together, we get it all accomplished. And we may not have, as they consider one, but we won the fight a lot more than we think we did. Kiani, let's go. Congrats. But let's see, what else? What's the most rewarding part of my campaign? For me, bringing together community, bringing together people who might not have ever met each other, let alone have sat down and had a meal together. We fed people in communities that, weren't thinking about just saying, hey, I'm gonna try a piece of chicken with this guy. And we did things that weren't possible. We brought out people in record numbers that never voted before. We inspired little Black girls and little Black boys to get into politics and realize what this work looks like. And we inspired people to figure out what civics is. It's not always about politics, but civics is where it begins. And if we could teach our communities, we could teach our families, we could teach everyone what civics looks like, we can begin to change what this political field looks like. So I think that was the one thing I learned about my community. And the most rewarding part as well. So what's next for me? As you all know, I'm a harm reductionist, I'm a community organizer, and I'm keep doing this work. I have the Community Rising Project, and we plan to take it to the next level. Right now, we are fighting behind Clean Slate, trying to give people a second chance. And if you don't know what Clean Slate is about, please go to cleanslatenewyork.org. There are too many people that don't have access to housing, don't have access to jobs, that don't have the ability to actually be economically stable in this economy in the middle of a pandemic due to the fact that they've got a record from 20, 30 years ago. And Clean Slate will change that and make so many things possible where we can actually say that we are making change for New York State as a whole. So if I could turn back time, like Cher, what would I do differently? Knock on more doors, talk to more people. As Steve said, we got to do some voter education. We got to tell people, explain to people how important this is. There are so many people that got it but didn't get it. They didn't come out. They didn't show up. They just weren't there, and they didn't realize how important it was. We are now sitting in a majority Republican city, and unfortunately, the fault does not fall upon us. The fault, is based upon the justice that we have tried to seek, but the system that has definitely worked against us. So I'm thankful to say that, to do something differently would just be to do it harder, to do it more. This is a numbers game, and we just got to get the numbers up. And so I'm more than willing to do it again. Let's go harder next time. And was my campaign people powered? Definitely it was people powered more than anything. To say that the party powered behind me, I would love to say that, but unfortunately, my power was to the people. So thank you to the people, Troy, for all of your hard work and dedication. And thank you for everybody that sits on this panel with me for all of your hard work and your support with me as well.
Thank you so much, Marketa. Kiani?
Yes, thanks for having me here. So I decided to run because I had been leading Troy DSA for the past 2 years, and we had always talked about running a candidate. And I was like, all right, I know how to run meetings. I know how to bring people together. I know how to talk to people. I actually really enjoy knocking on doors. So yeah, we'll do it, and have the team behind me and all of that. Obviously, my campaign was entirely people powered. People really supported me like across the board, not just with
my campaign manager and treasurer and, folks who were writing out the turfs for us and all of that, but also like the personal support, which I think was like the most important to keep me going every day. So the people that who weren't even necessarily involved with the campaign, but let me call them up and like
cry about something, or delivered me a meal so I would eat for the day, or sent me some money via Venmo. And I really realized that while I was running, especially that first couple of weeks, I was like, wow, there's so many people out here who want to support me, not only just like with volunteering, but also like raising money. Like we raised nearly $15,000 in my campaign, which was like super humbling experience for me, because I was like, wait, I haven't talked to you in like 5 years. You give me like $500? Like, what is this? It was really humbling to see that my impact on people was so positive, and people kept me in their minds as I was, going out and doing my life. I learned about myself that, I'm approachable, I'm a leader. I have really good instincts. A lot of the things that we sought out in the beginning of the campaign, things that we wanted to fix, were exactly the things that people were concerned about when we were going door to door, talking to folks, getting them to understand, like, this is what I'm about, this is what I am concerned about. Does that resonate with you? And a lot of folks overwhelmingly were like, yeah, like these are the exact same things I'm concerned about. Most rewarding part of it was talking to people face to face, was getting involved in my community, seeing these different parts of District 5 that I didn't even realize were part of the district or part of Troy even. That was really rewarding and something that I really, really value. Challenges, I would say definitely working full time at a farm during the campaign was really difficult, because as the campaign's ramping up, the season's ramping up, it was a lot really overwhelming. And also just like bringing people together and like kind of having a united vision, that can sometimes be difficult. Working with a whole bunch of people can be hard sometimes. What would I change? I think leaning more on like my skills and, asking for support. I know that I received a lot of support, but I think sometimes when I was struggling, like personally or whatever, like, I didn't want to ask for too much. So, making sure that like I'm being vulnerable with people and really communicating well. And I'm not quite sure if I would do it over again. I think given how the council shaped up, it's a lot more difficult. And I think there was a lot of costs at the campaign, like on a personal level. So I'm not really sure if we'll see what happens, but I'm still going to do my best in the victory that we had, and really want to be representing people. And I'll talk a little bit more about what my plans are, but I am the representative of District 5, so it's real exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kiani. And just to be respectful of time, I have a question for each one of you, if you can respond as briefly as you can, because we do want to be able to get to some questions. I haven't really seen any questions coming in yet, but the first question I have is for Colin. How was your work as an educator and multidisciplinary artist shaped your worldview? And is this an important part of why you decided to run for office?
It's absolutely a part of why I decided to run for office. In my artistic practice, I center social issues, I center the story, I center the human experience. I can't do that without talking about my experience as a Black person living in this country. I can't do that without talking about my experience as a woman in this country. I can't do that without talking about my immigrant family, my Haitian roots, my Pan-African lens, all of that permeates throughout all of my work, whether it's through poetry or visual art. And even when I'm teaching, you know, as a teaching artist, I'm centering the human spirit and how people can use language to empower themselves. And all of that, I think, are qualities that you would look for in someone who's running for office. And I also think that, you know, just the work that I do in general, and past experience teaching high school or middle school, working in the nonprofit world, all of that has informed what I know to be holes in our system, and things that I want to change about education or the nonprofit world, and how I want to move and show up in those spaces, and who I want to bring along with me, right? So, you know, I could write poems, or I could write legislation, or I could do both. Is just how I approach, you know, all of it.
Thank you so much, Dee. And the next question I have for Shawntell. So Shawntell, you ran an independent campaign. What shaped your decision to run an independent campaign? And what were the advantages or disadvantages of an independent campaign? What did you learn from that?
Absolutely. So first, when I say independent campaign, what I meant is I just chose to, outside of being endorsed by a specific party, like outside of being a democratically endorsed candidate or Working Families, I decided not to take any endorsements from any organizations. And I had chosen to do that because I wanted to have as much control over my campaign decisions as possible. What were the advantages of that? I was able to make decisions more efficiently. But the biggest disadvantage, which I've learned now really hurt, is that people really felt, and people were really concerned and felt ambiguity around where I stood on issues, which I did not anticipate, you know? So people really didn't feel that they knew what my priorities were, and they couldn't really put me into an easy category. So I just felt like that might be more, that now that I think about it, I look back, that caused me more problems than I had anticipated. Would I do that again? No. I think I recognize now that, you know, trying to be more controlling over my campaign message is really not what it's about. It's not about efficiency. It's about embracing all types of opinions. And, you know, that's democracy. It's about just letting more people in. But now that I know the process better, I can now kind of, you know, still have some control, but still accept more from people.
Thank you so much, Shawntell.
Yeah.
Next, I have a question for Gwen Wright. What was it like running against Steve McLaughlin? And what are your thoughts on the slew of allegations involving ballot fraud and charges relating to campaign fund misuse that have been reported in the news? And can you speak to the significance of fighting for an early voting site in downtown Troy?
Thank you. You know, my response to what we're reading in the news, or what came out almost immediately after the election in regards to Steve McLaughlin, was not news to a lot of us. Many of us knew that these investigations were going on, and it was just a matter of time before they came to light. So for me, I made a decision early on. You know, I think that that's what candidates do. Just like Shawntell made a decision not to take endorsements, I made the decision very early on, despite people's concern, to run a clean campaign and to not sling mud and to not get down in the pits with people. You know, as Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And I intended and maintained a higher standard than he. That being said, I think that what that led to was that he had nothing to come at me about. And so he was actually pretty quiet during the majority of the campaign. The one time that he came after me, it was sort of ridiculous and it just fell flat. But so running against him, however, I think really put me in a situation that some of my other comrades on this panel were in, which was always having to watch my back, look over my shoulder. That sort of heightened anxiety is really hard to sort of push through sometimes. And so, you know, in looking back, I wish I did not have to do that, but that is the reality of modern day politics. That just is what it is. And if I could change anything about running as a candidate for any kind of public office, it's that we stop the bullshit. Excuse me. But I think that we have got to make politics be honorable and honest and not really about, and I think everyone on this panel has said it, you know, it's not about me. It's not about ego. It's really about what we as a citizenry want. And I think that that was lacking. So running against Steve, I don't know if things could have been different, but what I will say is I think that it just made me more hyper vigilant in terms of who I represented and who I aligned myself with. And I felt like I did a really good job. I stayed out of the negativity and out. And when it came up, I just said, I'm done with you, move on, because I'm going in this direction. And I had a few of those. The early voting site, you know, to quote an early suffragist, Ida B. Wells, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. And I think that that's what the NAACP and the League of Women Voters and the Attorney General and all the folks who did the lawsuit, supported the lawsuit, and pushed forward around an early voting site was really to turn the light upon the wrong that was done when the initial site was set. I think that that was the key, that they said, look at it. Up here on this hill, the Armenian church, who is that serving? And that was not in meeting the letter of the law of the state of New York. And so I think that that's our ever-going challenge, is to shine the light on those wrongs and be, as I said earlier, be the change that we want to see.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gwen. Thank you. The next brief question that I have is for Marketa Edwards. So Marketa, some people have suggested that you were a spoiler candidate and have cast blame in your direction for the results of your election in District 6. What would you say to those people or institutions?
Well, to those people, I would say first, I'm not sure who they are. I would want to know the names of them. I would want to know who those institutions are, because I'd like to sit down with them to find out why they feel like I was a spoiler. The base that I know I represented felt like I represented them wholeheartedly. And I represented the people who are the voiceless. I represented the people who don't have people that look like them to speak for them, who don't have people that have been through their traumas in office. So that's what I would say to them. And let's sit down together and figure out these problems. Let's figure out why you felt like I didn't represent you and how I can represent you. So that way, when I run again, we can tackle these problems together.
All right now. Thank you so much, Marketa. The next question I have, Kiani, if you can briefly respond to this question. So you were recently sworn in as the city council member for District 5 in the city of Troy. Given the makeup of the city council now, Republican majority, 4-3, how does this impact or alter any goals you had when you initially sought office?
Yeah, absolutely. So my goals have really shifted away from like legislation, because I know a lot of the things that I would propose or even have other people propose, it would get shot down. Like, it's kind of just not worth the effort and the time, I think. I think it's more important to focus on like people and community focus. So obviously sticking to that commitment of, making sure that I have information going out to my constituents, making sure I can direct them to where they need to go, but also building out the skills in our community, in our network. And, I've been thinking about maybe doing like a podcast or something to just get the information out in a simple, like easy to read manner of what's going on in these council meetings, what agreements or what things were passed, what does that mean for everyone? And, just building and hoping that these, like, kind of setting up the foundation for a better political system, and really having, whether it's building a political party, building a PAC, or whatever it is, just building something for us, and something that we can really show up to and actually have power and authority and decision making over. Because I think, just given the makeup of the council, it's like I'm the most left-leaning person on that council, and it's going to be really difficult to convince folks what I see and what I understand because of the way that I was brought up and my experiences. So that's really the goal right now, is just sending out information and making sure that we're all on the same page and we all understand how this works.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kiani. And the last question is for Stephen. And Stephen, can you briefly answer this question? You would be able to tell us about your involvement in the community organizations such as Team Hero, Food and Clothing Drive, Youth Build, shaped or prepared you to run for city council. What would you say to a struggling youth who feels that they are powerless to affect change in their community? And what does the North Central part of Troy need more than anything else right now?
Yes, so I like that because I was looking at one of the questions, which was, do the candidates have a plan to recruit young people of color? So that kind of coincides with what you said. All these organizations have empowered me tremendously. And for some of you guys, if you guys noticed, during my canvassing out in the community, it was a lot focused with young people. I decided to involve young people in my campaign, door knocking and educating them. So I think for me, that's the most important thing in the community, just because they are the generations that come behind us. And our community is really going to dictate the young people that come behind us. As we all know, we're getting older, we're not getting younger. So what we do, what we leave behind affects our young people. So that was one of my main focus in my campaign. And as we all know, the plague of gun violence is really affecting North Central, and Brother Jerry and I, the founder of Team Hero, have been working day and night trying to bring a community center in that location. We realized doing the work that we do in the community that there's a gap of resources when it comes to young people. Besides the park that's there during the winter, during the summer, during the winter, there is no resources. There's limited programs. And then when it comes to financial assistance to sustain these programs, and Jerry could attest to this, Team Hero was founded by Jerry Ford, and with no money. We literally used to spend money out of our pockets unto this day. So most importantly, we need a community center. We need more resources for our young people in that community. And I'm fully focused on that. However, there's a lot of issues, but our main issues is our kids are dying. Our kids are dying each and every day. I just went to a funeral and I just went to a hospital in a matter of 2 weeks. 3 shootings, 1 homicide. No representation from the city, no representation from the administration, no representation from our mayor. We need to bring those issues to light that is not receiving much So building social capital in our young people, and then definitely attacking all the other issues in our community as well. But one of the main focus is trying to reduce these gun violence and bringing more resources to our youth and building that community center that we are in dying need in North Central specifically.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get to any additional questions given time. I know that we got a little late start. However, I want to extend a thank you to our esteemed panelists of candidates for sharing their insights. And I don't know if I have said this to you lately, but thank you so much for running for office, for stepping up. It means a lot to me, and I know that it means a lot to many of us in the community. So thank you so much. So I want to thank every single person that supported your campaigns. And I want us to reflect back on what Reverend Hunter said. Working together works. What actions are you taking to change the status quo? What actions are you taking to protect democracy? What actions are you taking to continue Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream and fight for racial equality, social and economic justice? We can no longer stand on the sidelines. We must act and work together. Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "Tomorrow is today." We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is time for vigorous and positive action. Thank you.